Ladies and gentlemen, the Honorable Richard Spencer, the Secretary of the Navy.
Thank you, Admiral Harley. Hello to all. It's a sincere pleasure to be up in sunshine after all of us down in Washington have left 4 weeks of straight rain, I believe. It's great to burn the mold off. I want to thank you all for the opportunity to address you all. You had a great morning, I heard, between the CNO and the Commandant. You've heard the message loud and clear. You're going to hear some more messages. What I thought I'd do for you today was give you an insight into my priorities that have been out there in front of the fleet and just some observations. I want to start, though, by giving you some insight as to what's changed already. Between your Chief of Naval Operations and your Commandant, you have 2 of the best war fighters in the Pentagon. But as I wear a Title X hat and I run a company, which is to buy things, paint them gray or blue or green, and give them to the appropriate services, I run a company. I could not be prouder and more happy than working with my 2 business partners as I now address them when it comes to Title X, the Admiral Richardson and General Neller. They get it, they understand it, they know what we have to do to get where we're going. And it's a sincere pleasure to work with both of them. We are all in good hands. So where are we on priorities? My priorities are really simple: people, capabilities, and process. And what do I mean by that? Sometimes it sounds trite when we say people are the obvious most important asset we have, but it's not trite. All we have in the Navy and the Marine Corps is cold steel or aluminum or chips that without the human interface do not meet half the capabilities that these platforms have. We need our people, our sailors, our Marines, our leaders across the board to be engaged in our service. And we owe it to them as leaders to provide an engaging service, to retain the good that we have, to continually provide the atmosphere of challenge and reward those that rise to challenge. That is the key part in people. It's going to be a challenge going forward. You all know, you've seen our economy is improving. And as the economy improves, we compete. And the game is now in our court to do the best that we can to have the tools that we need to recruit, train, and retain the best that our country has to offer. Congress is helping us. I will tell you that I've only been hanging around the hoop about 10 years between the Defense Business Board, the CNO's executive panel, and now. I guess you add now, it's 11 years. But I have never seen the Congress lean in the way it's leaning in right now. Between the HASC, the SAS, the HAC-D, and the SAC-D, most all of our meetings start with, how can we help? And they finish with, have we given you enough? They've given us some authorities. They've given us wild latitude on a comparable basis when it comes to the acquisition arena. They've given us latitude now when it comes to personnel, giving us the flexibility to try new things. When it comes to retaining people and keeping expertise, the ability for people to come and go in and out of the service is going to be incorporated. The ability to bring people in from outside the service at various ranks for the first time is being entertained. Would we be able to say this 5 years ago? I highly doubt it. But we have to start thinking like this because we are competing in a very competitive pond when it comes to these resources. Capabilities. The Deputy Secretary has set a very interesting paradigm in his way he's approaching business tools to run the Department of Defense. There are many metrics that he's brought out of corporate America that he's used at Boeing, and we've incorporated from other places. The whole concept here is everyone get their arms around where they are, where they're going, have a plan, and for the first time in the Pentagon's history, if you're green and you're on plan, you don't speak. We don't want to hear the success right now. Right now, the people we need to pay attention to are those that are red or yellow, those that need help. Yellow, I'm off plan. I have a plan to get back on plan, and I have the resources to do it. Fine. Sit down. Great. Duly noted. Red, Off plan, got some big rocks in my alleyway here, need some help. Got it, we can weigh in. It's metrics like these and just paradigms like these that are helping us really attack some of the issues we're facing today. People ask me, what was your biggest surprise since coming on board? And to be very frank with you, it was readiness. I knew we had op tempo, had really taken a beating on the service, and as you all well know, the uniformed services are not prone to say no. They will find a way to get the job done. And the op tempo increased, and we were burning a candle at both ends. That has stopped. We now are coming out of the readiness hole. I think we're well on our way. The needle is moving underneath the Commandant and the CNO. We clearly have the plan in place, and we are managing forward in that regard. And that is capabilities. We have to increase the capabilities of existing platforms we have, and when we look forward, we have to ensure that our spending on both acquisition, research, development, science, and technology foots to the National Defense Strategy. And we are doing that right now. If I could hinge capabilities and people together for one moment, let me tell you what's going on in your Navy Marine Corps team enterprise. An example I bumped into last fall was out at an Amtrak battalion repair facility, and they had a little tent set up. As you walk closer, it was 4 parts out on the table, and I said, aha, additive manufacturing, I get it. And one was a little plastic cap that covered a breather tube on a diesel engine, and without that plastic cap, which cost maybe $1.50, the engine didn't run. And it was put in such a place, when you slide the engine in and out, it always seemed to catch something and break. Well, they learned how to, they actually got the intellectual property, the data, and actually could manufacture that. No problem. That's not that wildly impressive, but it's a step forward. At the far end of the table is a turbine blade. It's actually a FOD ejector system, but it looked like if you had sliced a seashell in half, and it had elegant blades on the inside. It was truly an amazing piece of engineering. On one Friday, a Marine Corps corporal took a CAD machine home with her, measuring machine, and created the algorithm to mill this piece. This piece was a 19-week lead time, $23,000 piece of gear. She brought the algorithm into her smart war persons, gave it to her, said, can we have this milled in town? They did. Thursday, they put the first one on the machine. It failed. Friday, they put the second one on. It worked perfectly. Including the RAND hourly rate for a corporal in the Marine Corps, the equipment, and the material was $1,500 to produce that. She was promoted to sergeant and given a Benny Suggs Award of $5,000. That is the kind of people we have in our service who are thinking outside the box. Processes, or processes, as my Latin teacher would say. Biggest eye-opener here today. Met with some of the folks over at the labs. And we're talking about rapid prototyping, rapid developing, which, as you know, is a complete key to where we're going forward. We have to get all our ideas out to the warfighters as quickly as possible. I was listening, and we found out that we had some fascinating programs, and I said, when you say rapid, how rapid? Well, 3 years, Mr. Secretary. And I said, that was rapid compared to what? And they said, well, using instruction 5000. And I said, well, let's scrap that benchmark, and now let's use 3 as the benchmark and go forward from there. We have to start thinking about processes much differently. I mean, it truly, I'm reminded of a story when I was in my hidey hole before I got confirmed, where they, if any of you have gone through it, you know what I'm talking about, but those of you who haven't, you spend a whole bunch of weeks where they get you very smart on the Navy Marine Corps programs and the institution, and then all of a sudden your date to be confirmed is solidified, and then they spend a week making you dumb so you can't answer any of the questions and embarrass yourself. But I was through, about 2/3 of my way through, and I looked in the afternoon session right after lunch, which, as you can imagine, is a tougher session, and it was a 2-hour brief on Instruction 5000. The Bible of the DoD acquisition process. And I had 2 admirals and 2 Marine Corps generals in there, and at the far end of the table were the horse holders. There was a Navy lieutenant and a Marine Corps captain. And after 2 hours and everyone's ears are appropriately bleeding, I was asked if I had any questions, and I said, I have none of you, gentlemen, but I would like to ask the junior officers at the end of the table what they think of Instruction 5000, because they might inherit this. The Navy lieutenant, showing his superior intelligence, chins it over to the Marine immediately. And the Marine, ever resourceful, looks down and then looks up and goes, "Sir, if it was up to me, I'd stamp top secret on it, leave it off on the Chinese embassy steps. They adopt it, we win." We are getting after this. Again, here is an area that is a keen focus for all of us, especially on the acquisition front, to get the technologies, the solutions out to the warfighter, out to the fleet as quickly as possible so it can be engaged. The thought process now is we really do have to manage risk. We can't expect to drive risk down to zero because we cannot afford risk being zero for dollars or for time. We have to be able to understand managing risk. If it means getting it out to the fleet in peacetime for them to break it and learn from it, let's do that now, and let's get a better product for when the balloon goes up. As we go forward, the process can help us too. You've heard about the audit. The audit is a key promise of mine to my board of directors, my overseers, but there's a reason why it was an easy promise to make, having come from the corporate world. The audit is not an invasive function that's a pain in the neck. The audit, we are viewing the audit as a tool to help us. A tool to help us understand our resources, a tool to help us understand how we deploy our resources, and a tool to help us manage our resources. We've only gone through one cycle so far, and I'll give you an example of what we found. That between DLA, NAVSUP, squadrons, ships, and end users, we have more than 1,000 distribution centers. 1,000 distribution centers. Amazon does their whole global networking now with 24. I think there's some room for improvement there. This is the kind of information, though, that we find out and we can do something with. We can make ourselves better. We have to make ourselves better. One, we've promised to get the audit, but we are looking at the audit as a tool, not just a financial tally agreement. As we go forward with all of this, we have in mind what the Secretary says is our two goals, readiness and lethality. Because your Navy, as you well know, is the maneuver force, always forward deployed, ready to fight tonight. And that we're bringing to the forefront of every single statement that we make when we start thinking about strategy, when we start thinking about process, when we start thinking about people and capabilities. And what I want to leave you with right now is that I believe your Navy is on a terrific course. There's still correction to be done. We are working under one of the CNO's lines of efforts, which is a quick learning organization. And what I mean by that is that when I was up for confirmation, we talked about the speed of relevance and the speed to get things done. And I said, fine, you want speed, I totally respect it, I understand it, but I'm going to come before you, members of Congress, and tell you that I've fallen off the bicycle. And the reason I've fallen off the bicycle is because we are going fast, and you want me to fall off the bicycle. Because if I'm not going fast, I probably won't fall. We need to push the organization. But what you want to hear when I come in is not how I felt or how I got hurt. It's what I learned when I fell off the bicycle, because I'm going to get back on and continue the acceleration and velocity. And that is the mindset that we have to have going forward. We have it. It's in place. We're correcting at all times. The arrow is back to true north, and you have one of the best fighting forces that you could want. And with that, I say thank you very much.